everybody. Welcome to Art and Activism, a new program started by Mural Arts. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Ginger Rudolph. I'm a curator and an arts writer here in Philadelphia. And I'm just really super excited because today we're going to talk about artistic activism, where we use our creative power in the arts to move us emotionally, to start strategically planning out what's necessary in order for us to affect social change. And I have two guests with me today who have been doing that very strategically. So we're going to be talking to Freeway, the rapper. I feel like I really don't need to introduce him, but he's a North Philly native. And he had a life-changing event in 2015 that got him to start thinking about how he could start affecting change. And he created something called the Freedom Thinkers Academy. And we're going to talk to him a bit more about this intersection. And we also have Greg Corbin. Greg is also a Philly native who works with Mural Arts. He is the director of the Restorative Justice program there, but he's also a motivational speaker. He's also a poet. He's an imagination activist. You've got to tell me what that means, Greg. I love that. And an educator and humanitarian. And we're going to be talking about that quite a lot today. So I want to welcome the both of you here with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it, Ginger.
Hey, guys. Hope everybody's having a good day. What's up, Greg? What's good?
What's going on, Free?
I'm in the studio. I just got finished cooking up a banger. I got here at like 5:20, and I'm like, okay, I got to get this verse done before it's time for me to jump on this live, and I got it done, and it's extra fiery.
So I'm gonna hit you up later. I gotta hear it.
Yeah, for sure. I got you.
I'm glad the two of you are already like getting really chummy because I'm hoping that you start to ask one another questions as we go through the topic today. What I want to start doing is not assume that everybody knows what restorative justice is or what the Freedom Thinkers Academy is, Freeway. So I'm going to let each of you sort of explain what you do. So let's start with you, Greg. Like, how are you using restorative justice with the Mural Arts program?
So the way we're doing Mural Arts at the way we're doing restorative justice is a community-based approach to dealing with crime and the effects of crime, the prevention of crime. It's a process that operates from a belief that justice lies in problem solving and healing rather than punitive isolation. And we see a lot of that in society. And one of the ways we practice it is we have a program called The Guild, which is an apprenticeship program that uses art to facilitate transferable skill development, whether it's professional and personal, through mural making, through carpentry, and through other trades that are becoming more and more popular in today's society. And we're starting to drill down more on what it means to practice restorative justice when it comes to that work, because we often do find that people returning home, returning citizens, are often neglected, seen as disposable, seen as expendable in many different ways. And we live in a society where there's so much trauma and a design of business around trauma that a lot of people are not interested in solving it. Because once you say there's something wrong with the way things are designed in today's society, the way we build cities, the way we put people on top of each other without giving them resources, there's a business and a workflow to that. And so we honor the work that we do because we see it as very sacred. And, you know, it's not just about the apprenticeship program, but it's also got getting somebody job ready and what that means as well. And that's an ever evolving thing as well. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, restorative justice, when you ask me, like just out of like thinking about more and more what it means, I often have come to the thought that restorative justice really starts internally first. If you're not willing to restore what may be off kilter inside of you, you know, depending on how you even define justice, you know, if you're not balanced, if you're not aware of your own stuff, it is hard to restore things outside of you anyway. And so what I started doing just on a personal level is looking at what does it mean to see what I've internalized through capitalism, through colonialism, and identifying what needs to stay and what needs to go. And we're all products of our environment. And so when you think about restorative justice, it's not just this wide casted net. It starts at home first, you know, and what people do in their own daily walk. And so with Mural Arts, we really are encouraging, you know, the people that come through our programming to not just develop professionally, but also on a personal level. Because if a person does not transform their habits, their attitude, their belief system, their value system, it's incredibly hard to sustain employment once it's earned.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're doing today, guys, is try to identify some of these value systems. I just want to, for anybody who hasn't seen a lot of the art that goes along with the work that Greg does, maybe I'll just identify two, I think, really major projects in the city. One is at the municipal building, and that was Portraits of Justice.
Yes,
is that
yes.
correct, Greg? Okay. And the other one that I think is very impactful that I've seen around the city are the huge murals called Stamps of
Yes.
Incarceration. And one of my favorites is by the Rail Park, which I think is like 11th and Callahill.
Yeah.
So guys, if you've seen work like this, these are some of the notes that Greg and Restorative Justice have been putting out in the city so that you can just get a little taste of some of the depth of the program and how they try to have this intersection between activism and art. But I'd love to talk a little bit about your Freedom Thinkers Academy, Freeway.
Yeah, before I get into that, I just want to follow up on what Greg said about restorative justice and how important it is to change your mind frame before you try to do anything. Like I've been through the prison system. In '99, I got arrested for possession with intent to deliver. And when I was in jail, they was telling me when to eat, when to sleep, what to do. I was like, I can't go through this no more. I was like, when I get out, I have to have a plan together. I have to focus. I have to like really turn my life around. And you know, by the grace of God, when I got out, I linked up with Benny Siegel and Jay-Z, and I was able to get on the Dynasty album in 2000. And you know, it changed my life around. And I haven't been in any trouble with the law since '99, 2000. You know, so I definitely changed my mind frame, and I definitely focus on moving forward and being successful in life. You know, if you don't change your mind frame, you can't change anything, you know. So it starts, like he said, it starts at home. It starts with you. You have to make a change first. And for those people that don't know me that's on here, I'm Philadelphia Freeway. I'm a recording artist from Philadelphia. I was part of one of the most successful record labels in the world, Rockefeller Records. I dropped the album in 2003, a classic gold album called Philadelphia Freeway. You know, Rockefeller broke up in 2006 or 2007. When the Rock broke up, I went back to what got me there in the first place, and that's hard work. I was doing mixtapes, I was doing features. I did this thing called Month of Madness where I dropped a record a day. And on the last day, I dropped 2 records. You know, I always try to do a little bit more and push myself a little more than everybody else, because everybody else is going hard. So you gotta go a little harder than everybody else. In 2015, I was performing at Made in America. I was performing on a set with Fabulous. And right before I went on stage, I was like feeling real fatigued. It was a hot day. I had Timberlands on and jeans, and I was just like wore out. And like probably a couple months before that, I was feeling very fatigued and tired. Like I work a lot, I tour a lot, so I'm like, I'm probably just tired from being on the road. But it came to a point where I get tired just walking to the car. So I knew something was wrong. So that day, when I got on the stage, I looked out and I seen the crowd, and I had like an anxiety attack. It never happened to me before in my life. I felt like I couldn't do it. So I pulled somebody to the side like, yo, I don't think I can do it. I can't do it. By the grace of God, I pushed through it. I got through it. Everything was cool. So after that, I went to the doctors. I got some blood work done. Like a week later, my doctor called me and told me to get to the emergency room. My creatinine level was through the roof. My electrolytes was out. So me being Muslim, first thing I did was I went to the masjid. I prayed to ask God to help me deal with the situation. So I went to the hospital. I was diagnosed with end-stage renal failure. That was the 15th of September, 2015. 2016, they cut my chest open, put a permacath in my chest. From that day all the way to February 4th for 2019, I was on dialysis. I did dialysis 3 times a week, 4 hours a day, which was a huge adjustment for my life. You know, then by the grace of God, I got a transplant. I got a new kidney, you know, so I'm moving forward. Everything is great. I founded a company called Freedom Thinkers Academy. And, you know, the focus is music, health, and culture, you know, so we really focus on providing awareness about music, health, education through discussion, events, mentoring, face-to-face consultations, and we do create it yourself workshops with people that's passionate about music and for people that's passionate about their health and they want to know about their health. And the reason why I added the health division to the Freedom Thinkers is I was running around with 3 of the leading risk factors for kidney failure, one being hypertension, another one being diabetes, and surprisingly, just being African-American is a risk factor. So I had 3 risk factors. I had an uncle that had kidney failure, had a transplant. I had a cousin that passed away that had kidney issues, and she wasn't taking care of herself, and she passed away. She left 2 kids behind. So I had these examples in my family, and I had 3 risk factors, and I was unaware of it. I was running around not knowing. So I feel like it's my job and it's my duty to spread awareness, you know, because like the great G.I. Joe said, knowing is half the battle. And a lot of people really just don't know, you know. So instead of me hiding my disease and, you know, just keeping it away from everybody, I felt it was very important for me to spread awareness. I'm currently, and I have been ambassador, celebrity ambassador for the National Kidney Foundation. You know, I participate in kidney walks all over the country. You know, sometimes I even perform, turn up at the kidney walks, you know, to give people hope. And, you know, I just spread awareness, and I'm just trying my best to, you know, make sure that everybody's informed, because knowing is half the battle.
That's very true. I think we've all had the pleasure of being able to talk to one another before we actually had this this live chat. And what I was really impressed by is the both of you have very mindful approaches to what you're doing. And Freeway, I know that you offer particular workshops for the Academy. And I went on and I was really impressed by the range of workshops that you offer, and even the fact that you can actually go on and survey yourself to see which one would be the best appropriate for you. So maybe we could just sort of like break down the type of help that you're giving people here at the Academy.
Well, as far as the music, you know, I have workshops. I have like the Rock the Mic workshop. I have What We Do workshop, and it basically breaks down the art of making a song. You know, as far as the live workshops, we do it like how we're doing it right now. I would probably hold a class on Monday, and I would like break down everything and go through how, because it's different ways. It depends on who the artist is, but it's different ways creatively that you can approach making a song. So I break down the way that I go about making a song, or maybe a few different ways that I went about making a song. Then Tuesday and Wednesday, the people that class songs to yourself and work at home, and, you know, figure out the best way that they want to do it and the best way that they want to approach it. And then Thursday we'll get back on a live, and I'll critique everybody's music and, you know, go through it and give them my pointers on how everything's come along. And, you know, it's amazing, you know, because when I was coming up in the game, I didn't have anything like that. You know, things like that was unheard of. You had to figure it out for yourself, like, you know, so I feel like that's very important. And one thing, we have a teacher, a certified teacher that's a part of Freedom Thinkers Academy. So we're getting ready to add some STEM classes too.
Nice.
Yeah,
so
that is very cool.
We're really trying to, you know, put it together, man, because, you know, like where we're from is dangerous. Philly is dangerous. I'm not lying to you. 3 people that I know died this week. And it's just sad, and it's just crazy, and everybody got all this idle time, and they don't have nothing to do, and they can't figure out what to do. So, you know, at Freedom Thinkers Academy, we're trying to definitely open up people's eyes, and especially people that's passionate about music, and give them an avenue to help them turn up their creative.
Yeah, I noticed, like, when I was talking to Greg, that was the one thing, Greg, that you were saying. I think that's like a parallel between you and Freeway. You were talking about how dangerous the streets are and how that really has an effect on how we move forward with our future. So we want to start talking about like some of the tools we can start giving people in order to sort of change that sliding scale.
Yeah, you know, it's a creativity, you know. If we're made in the image of the creator, we were to get, you know, into sacred text and things like that, we would think like, oh, part of our responsibility as human beings is to, you know, recreate or create or express, right? And when you silence people's voices, as we've been hearing the quote of Martin Luther King, you know, a riot is the voice of the unheard. Can you imagine how many households have children where their voice is going unheard, where the silence is just deafening, right? And when people don't get to open up and express themselves, it leads to acts of violence. You know, I'm a survivor of it, but I'm also in some ways have been a perpetuator of it. You know, if we want to be honest and really just talk about doing the work and really owning our own stuff. You know, we've all been born into a situation where the authority is the system, you know, and the rules are made up by the system, which is, you know, on the bedrock of, you know, a lot of deep, dark history in the country, which we're now coming to a reckoning with. And so when you think about Philly, you know, who taught violence, right? I think Tamika Mallory brought this up, but also Dr. Joy DeGruy talks about this in post-traumatic slave syndrome, is like, who teaches violence, and where do we get these acts from, and how do we handle it? And so art is one of those things that allows people to breathe. It allows people to release. And even with the work that we've been doing around restorative justice in the department, when we partner with other arts organizations, when we're going in and out of correctional facilities, you know, when the work is happening around murals such as Healing Walls, which was dedicated, a project that happened way before I came on. It was led by Robin Buseman and Jane Golden, who's our founder and executive director. They created Healing Walls, which was a project that actually served as this medium and this way of connecting the community with, you know, people who were incarcerated with their family members. And so they brought in this cloth and were able to do a lot of art with this cloth, with the mural, and then connect with the family members as well. And what was interesting about that process is, you know, somebody who is become, you know, near and dear to the organization, James Yahya Huff, who is now the artist in residency with the district attorney. He was released last summer, I think towards the end of the summer, and he actually was able to see his work for the first time in years. And we're talking about almost 20 years. That's amazing, to come home out of prison and see the work that you contributed, and you know what that did for his self-esteem and what it did for those families who were able to connect. And another point I want to make is, we live in these environments where it's so busy. It's so many opportunities, so much temptation, and it's structurally designed, almost like it sets up these traps, which goes into why we may call certain genres of music trap. Like there's a genre in rap music called trap music, and it really speaks to trauma. It really speaks to what the response of being oppressed. It's a voice for the oppressed. And it made me think about the irony of having to be incarcerated to discover that you have artistic genius inside of you, because now you can sit still in the sense of isolation and reflection and feel safe. Whereas though in your environments, the moment you go outside, it's like, you know, the terror is there. I had my own experiences with it, whether I'm coming home from school, you know, whether I'm coming, you know, I'm going out the house after an argument with my sisters, you know, you just kind of, you don't know who's out to get you, and you create these perceived threats in a lot of ways. And so art is a very holistic tool that can be used to unite not just the community, but also the individuals inside the community, you know, who are trying to find ways to piece themselves back together.
So how do we start doing that? Because earlier you were saying to me, and I loved it, maybe you could talk a bit more about that Carl Jung quote you were talking about leaving a shadow, like these experiences. And I love the fact that you mentioned that the families are incarcerated with them, because all of us have been directly or indirectly affected by mass incarceration. And I think a lot of times we don't realize the effect that it has on a family, and the effect that programs like restorative justice can do to go about that healing process for the family, so they can in turn help that person who's being incarcerated. Because I'm thinking to myself, the amount of hope that you have to keep up on the outside and just keep giving to the person who is incarcerated so they don't give up on themselves as well seems draining. Like that chronic stress is not just affecting the person on the inside, it's affecting the family on the outside. And I'm sure the choices that they make and how they move forward. So like, how are you creating a language for the families to help them out, as well as the people who are incarcerated?
Great question. I would say for us is more so right now we're working directly with justice impacted individuals in the guild between 18 and 26. And it's really, you know, I thought about this before, like, dag, like what if we had an accountability collective around each participant, you know, each guild employee who we work with, whereas though it's their cousin or their parent, somebody they trust that can whisper in their ear, you're going the right way. You know, you're to affirm the beauty of their own personal transformation, to affirm the need for patience, to affirm that you're going to have a tough moment and you're going to have some discomfort and what that looks like. And, you know, that's something we honestly need to work on, because I think with Healing Walls, it was innovative. It was an approach that said, wow, people miss their families and they miss their children and they miss, you know, whoever else is in that dynamic. And so I think for families who are looking for a way to connect, is to acknowledge the pain you're experiencing, whether it's voyeuristic, or I don't want to say voyeuristic because that can have a negative connotation, but the vicarious piece of trauma that happens when people are disconnected from their family. And it's sudden, right? It's like, just like that. And that person is out of the picture. And some people never get a letter. Some people never get a letter when they're sitting up there and they got to isolate and they're thinking about what they did and how they could have did it. You know, it's a lot of, you know, as we were talking earlier, you know, I have a great team of coordinators, a social worker, teaching artists, and, you know, they do some amazing work. So shout out to, you know, Chad, Dewan, Ricky, Will, Akil, and, you know, all the teaching artists that come through the Guild, and also, you know, that help us with this work, because it really takes a all hands on deck, but it also takes this moment where you got to breathe and be intentional about what you're doing, because we keep repeating this feedback loop. And eventually you got to step back and say, am I willing to be a victim of unlearned habits or unlearned practices that my environment keeps giving me? I have to change something, my thoughts and my behavior. And in order for us to change that approach, we have to continue to think about, as language evolves, and so does the knowledge, and how do we create more channels of communication for families who are interested in connecting with their loved ones on the inside.
Most definitely. You know, being in prison, you already feel alone. You know, like I told you, I was locked up for possession with intent to deliver. And then if you don't have your family in your corner, you really feel like you're all alone. Like you don't have no support. You know, when I was locked up, you know, by the grace of God, my mom was in my corner the whole time, you know. And when I came home, she was like, you got to get a job. You got to get on the right track. Like, forget the music, like, forget the streets. You got to get on the right track. And I told my mom, I was like, if the music thing don't work out for me by the end of the year, I'm going to get a job. And I was just telling her that. But of course, you don't want to disappoint the people that have been supporting you. So if it didn't work, I probably might have wound up having to get a job. But, you know, I landed the Dynasty album, and that came out in October of 2000. And then we had like an album release party, and my mom came and she was like, you told me you was gonna do it before the end of the year, and you did it. And I forgot I even told her that, you know. But me telling her that and doing it, you know, made her super happy, you know. And she, you know, she was in my corner the whole time, and I didn't disappoint her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's important to have support. Not only, you know, did I have my mom, you know, I had Beanie Siegel. Like I was on house arrest, and I would be home, and he's like, I'm in LA, it's beautiful out here. As soon as you get off house arrest, you're gonna be with me. I'm in Miami, it's beautiful down here. You know, we just shut the show down. As soon as you get off house arrest, you're gonna be with me. You know, so I had something to look forward to that I was passionate about. And, you know, once I got off house arrest, it was full steam ahead. I was right with him. I was working. I was going back and forth to New York to the studio. I had a support system, and I had a goal, and I had something that I was focused on, that I was passionate about. And it really helped me. And to this day, I'm still successful.
What do you think? Can you identify some of those tools, Freeway, that you think you developed while you were incarcerated that have helped you make the Freedom Thinkers more beneficial?
Well, first of all, like we said, it started with me. You know, me sitting in a cell with one other person, locked down at a certain time, having to come out at a certain time, have to eat at a certain time. That wasn't for me. I'm like, this is not life for me. I can't live my life like this. I have to do something different when I go home. You know, I can't go back to selling drugs and being in the streets, because it's going to land me right back where I'm at, and I'm going to disappoint the people that's supporting me, you know. So it started with myself, and then I didn't want to disappoint my support system. And like I told you, I had a goal, and I had something that I was passionate about that I could actually work on. you know, so all those things helped me move forward.
I'm just imagining, like, you started to give yourself your like vision, right? You're emerging, you're finding this light in this place of darkness. And then to me, that's sort of the intersection where restorative justice comes in. I'm wondering, like, you know what I mean? Like, just like, Greg, like, how do you go in? Like, I think that what Freeway's saying is amazing, but I'm just thinking to myself, like, I don't even know how you give that to yourself in a situation that feels so hopeless. Like how do you start to create that?
Like, I actually envisioned it in my head. I would go to sleep and I would forget, like I would be dreaming that I'm on stage rocking, and then I would wake up and be in jail. Can you imagine, like, you just was on stage, like living your dream, and then you wake up and you realize that you're in a cell? Like, I didn't want that for my life, you know, and I had a chance to get out and I had a chance to, you know, do the right thing. And I wasn't going to give up on that chance. You know, I wasn't going to mess it up. You know, I just stayed focused. When I got out, I had to go to this program, this treatment program called the Net. I had to stay in there 90 days after my prison sentence. And it was like a train, like the Amtrak would ride past the building every day. And before I got locked up, I had actually went to New York on the Amtrak with Beanie Siegel and Sadiq and a couple other people. So every time the train ride by, I would be like, they're probably on a train going up to New York. Like, you know, so I'm like, when I get out of here, I'm gonna be right on that train going up to New York, you know? So I had things to look forward to, you know?
And what about the people who in opposition would say to you, like, yeah, but Freeway, you had stuff before you went in. Do you know what I mean? Like, you had something to look forward to. You had something to keep in your head that I'm gonna have that when you get out. Like, what about the people who just went in with nothing and can't see anything but nothing?
I mean, that's why it's important to use the time to like focus on yourself. Like we said, you got to start with yourself. Like, nothing can change if you don't change. You know, if you don't change your mind, I see it a million times. I got friends that's in and out of jail. Like, I got friends that did more time in jail than they did outside in the real world. You know, and they'll say, okay, when I come home, I'm gonna do the right thing, and then they'll get out here and they'll get sucked into what's going on in the streets, and you know, sooner or later they'll be right back in prison because they didn't change their mind frame. You know, they still wanted to do the same thing. Some people go to jail and come home and think that they're gonna out-slick the system. Like, okay, I'm gonna be slicker this time, and I'm not gonna get caught, and I won't get caught up. But eventually, you're going to get caught up. You know, it's a thing called karma. Like, karma is real. Like, and what you put out into the world is what you get back. That's why I try to be as positive as I can. You know, I try to do the right thing. I try to treat people how I want to be treated. That's one of the reasons 20 years later, I still do shows. People know, they respect me. They know when I get paid to do a job, I'm going to be there on time. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to be professional. You know, all those things count. You know, that's the reason why 20 years later, I'm still successful. I got a situation with Rock Nation. I dropped an album in 2018 on Rock Nation called Think Free, and I'm finishing up my new album now because I stayed focused.
And it's important to have a voice who understands what they're already going through. But I wonder, like, Greg, is it fair to say restorative justice comes in to help people create that space for growth, that you start to help them practice challenging the ideas that they might have gone in with?
Yes, I think a lot of people we interact with when they're returning, or, you know, young people in general, you're not just in competition with the behaviors that they were conditioned into. You're also in competition with the lack of hope, the lack of direction, and also the impact of trauma, right? Like, you know, when people are moving in certain environments, they learn not to trust it. So they become antisocial. And so something we talk about a lot in our work with restorative justice is transforming somebody's mentality from antisocial to becoming pro-social. Because how are you going to network for any job opportunity if you're still in an anti-state of mind, right? Anti-system, anti-this, anti-that. And when you become pro, you start to believe. And so you're dealing with apathy. You're dealing with a lot of changing those patterns that people are caught up in because that's safety. That's normal. We are in environments where chaos is normal, right? And so we have to find these ways where we're trying to create order without state coming in, right? Without police coming in. And so we're looking at ways to constantly have conversations to increase emotional intelligence. So we can just park right there a little bit and just think about what Free is doing, you know, around the Freedom Thinker Academy. If you think about it, music, songwriting, right? Poetry. These are things that are used to not just articulate one's experience, create a space of release or therapy in some ways. They're also a way of practicing a sense of awareness and stillness. And a lot of people, even if they're not in the traumatic environment, they still have to deal with the fear of just being quiet, the fear of just being still. And it's one thing to be forced into isolation. It's another thing to choose isolation and start to work on yourself, to start to study yourself, to start to ask yourself these hard questions. But you gotta pull yourself back and put yourself on rewind, because if you don't, it's likely you may commit to making decisions that can get you back where you were trying to get away from. And so I think that's something we need to acknowledge. And then the last thing I'll say to that is the emotional intelligence piece, right? Being able to have an emotional literacy, to name your feelings. I don't know how many young people I've come across where they swung on somebody or shot at somebody because they could not articulate anger and rage in a way that was healthy for the entire community, starting with themselves. If that was a classroom in school, I graduated from King High School in 1997. We had conflict resolution my first year in ninth grade. I've never seen that class again in the school until probably 5 years ago when I was doing some work with Alden Reed High School, right? That was the first time I saw life skills, conflict resolution, emotional intelligence set up in a school. And as we know, South Philly has a lot of gun violence, right? And they needed it, but it's really cut down young people from committing to certain acts of violence or handling things in unhealthy ways that could be non-productive, you know? And so even my own personal walk with around just naming my own emotions and going to therapy and being open about it is very high key for me, you know, 1,000%. It's really important that you really start to sit with yourself at a certain point in your life and stop using the work that you do outside of yourself as an excuse not to address you.
Right. It's interesting because it reminds me of something you said to me earlier, how like that healing process isn't really tackled in our systems because it threatens capitalism. But I think it might be a great segue into talking about the Emerge program that you're working on with restorative justice.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna read it real quick because I love the way it was written and thinking about this idea, and you know, just to stamp on that, like threatened capitalism. America is founded on a lot of conflict and a lot of unhealthy behaviors. I don't need to run the gamut, but we are aware and we're dealing with that reckoning now. And that's that karma collectively we're all dealing with. We're all carrying the burden of, you know, 400 or 500 years of bad decision making and colonialism and violent acts. And so I'll say when COVID-19 hit, it amplified everything that was wrong. It became the light, literally. Every racial and ethnic disparity, everything around classism, everything around any phobia we want to create in our environment, because it's not, you don't need race just to oppress somebody. You can use religion, you can use gender, you can use orientation, you can use nationalism, you can use a bunch of different identity markers to do that. And so when COVID-19 hit, first thing I was thinking about was, oh my goodness, the economy. This is about to be rough. To see small businesses that just opened up, you was like, whoa, that's some jobs out the way, right? And one of the ways to measure the health of a city is to say, are there enough jobs in your city to keep it safe? Is there enough employment? And in Philadelphia, the answer is clear, like, no, there is not. There's statistics that back it. There's not enough job opportunities, and where are we getting these jobs from? And so now with COVID hit, you're like, wow, I'm in this line of work that's about getting people job ready. And they're unfortunately have been put in a position where they're disposable and expendable. And now you have to find ways to get them back in a place where their credit is good, so to say, with the environment, right?
Yeah.
And so the Emerge campaign, it aims to create an attitude of inspiration and hope while acknowledging not just the impact of COVID-19, but the innate strength and resilience of human beings challenged by the pandemic. The word emergence comes from the Latin word emergere, which means to bring light out of darkness. It's an opportunity to inform, educate, build awareness, and create space for empowerment. And we must now ask ourselves what else is contagious now that we're dealing with COVID-19, which has totally attacked the way we practice intimacy and connection and building community, right?
Yeah.
And we have to wrestle with that. So I'm thinking, like, how do we get people to start asking this question? Because it's our collective hope that people become the leaders they desire to be led by.
And how are we all working with, I mean, we've got that going on in here in Philadelphia. Here we are talking about artist therapy, but we've suffered some huge budget cuts to our arts programming. Has that affected you, Freeway? Because I'm not sure how the Freedom Thinkers Academy is funded. Like, has that affected how you're going to be able to move forward with the kids?
No, it's not affecting it at all. You know, we have other things set in place, whereas though we're gonna be good, but it definitely affected my music career when everything slowed up, when everything slowed down. You know, I had like 15 shows lined up when COVID hit, you know, and everything was canceled, you know, and not only, you know, as far as the money, but the music is my passion. You know, I love going from city to city performing and, you know, doing my thing and interacting with the crowd, you know, and giving them a piece of me, you know, and when COVID hit, all that came to a halt.
That's crazy. How about you, Greg, with restorative justice? Well, you've got this program coming out, so I'm happy that that's happening in the face of what's going on because it's sorely needed. But are you going to have any adjustments moving forward?
It's been like one big Rubik's Cube. You know, like you're always, every day brings a new challenge, a new question, and you're just like, how am I going to answer that? It comes with research. It comes with reading more about COVID. It comes with listening to the news and reading the trends. And it's a lot of pressure because, you know, it's connected to people's jobs. It's a job readiness program, and it's connected to keeping young people, young adults between the ages of 18 and 26 in a position where they don't recidivate. It is a lot. And, you know, and now the question, even with Emerge, right, is like, how do we emerge? There's public service announcements on the radio. You'll see stuff going up this week in a visual concept with wheat pasting around the city. You know, then you have the social media campaign. And so you have artists like Freeway and a slew of other artists who are involved with it, who are helping us really think about how do we keep the dialogue going and how we take that same energy and we keep trying to think of ways to emerge. Because every week I'm put in this position, and I think a lot of people are, where it's like, what's the best way forward? Because it's unprecedented.
We have we need to get to some of our Q&A questions, but I'm hoping that we still have enough time left to quickly go over maybe some action items, because I know that we didn't want to leave this discussion without giving people some sort of mindset and how to move forward, like how to make this manageable for themselves, how they can start collaborating with other people in the city, anything that they can utilize to move forward. But let me see if I can't grab a couple of questions for you guys. So I believe this one is for you, Freeway. Someone's asking, how did the isolation help you with your creative writing?
Thanks.
Oh, definitely. The isolation was definitely great for my creative. You know, I definitely spent not only just my creative, but my physical. You know, I spent a lot of time working out. I dedicated a certain amount of time every day to creating new music, you know, and it really worked out good for me. I got a slew of new material. I thought that I was finished the album before COVID hit. Now I have so much more amazing material. And if anybody that creates wasted this time when we was locked down and we couldn't do nothing, I feel sorry for you, because I took complete advantage of it, you know. And things changed so much, even from when we first started, you know, the campaign. Someone passed away that was working with us, you know, that we was on groups with every week. I wound up catching COVID. Me and my daughter was diagnosed with COVID. You know, that set me down for like 2.5 weeks, and it was so unexpected and it felt horrible, you know. And all these things that I go through is fuel for my music. You know, everything that I go through is fuel for my passion.
Yeah, I mean, you're a wordsmith, and I find myself, like, after we had our first conversation, going back through your music, because I don't have to have lived your life experience to be able to go back and hear how you discuss it you know, to hear how you use those words to give us that sort of implication of what you were going through and how you might sort of like tunnel your way through it. I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna try and get through as many of these questions as possible. But someone's asking, I guess it's more of a statement as well. Emotional intelligence is very important. It's a factor to success. Do you believe the best way to introduce the practice is in grade school, such as a child using an emotion chart to state how they feel at the beginning and the end of a day? I'm gonna kick that to you, Greg, because I feel like you were talking about that before.
Yeah, I saw you looking. I was like, she's looking at me. Yes, I think the younger you are, you know, you don't have to overwhelm people with all the different emotions, but there's a core where you see these emotional charts, and you see this will, and it's like often things like, you know, anger, you know, joy, love, and I forgot, it's like 4 core emotions, and then they spread out, and you'll see disgusted, you'll see distasteful, you'll see glee, you'll see celebration, you'll see harmony, you know, so I think the younger, the better.
And then the other one is, how is the Guild handling the COVID shutdown, and are you still able to work? I feel like we've sort of touched on that, but if you guys want to sort of expound on it.
We're figuring it out. We're figuring it out. We were able to actually go virtual back in March. Our programming is traditionally about physical space, about in-person connection. And when it first started happening, I said, oh my, you know, we need to figure out a different way. And we were able to create a virtual online work remote situation with our work where digital literacy became a huge focus, because instantly you can see the world just changing quickly. All of a sudden Zoom stock went from $90 to $270, and you're like, oh, this is where everything is going. And now you know that a lot of job interviews will happen over Zoom. And so being as though a lot of people returning home are not tech savvy, you know, and not introduced or don't take full advantage of it when it is introduced inside, right? You know, and so knowing that that's going to be a key component as we move forward and as the world becomes more digitized and technologically driven, we were able to pull our group off of that and keep our programming going. And it was just one of those week-to-week things where we just became more resourceful and creative, and we were able to raise the standards and, you know, have these new discoveries. So now we know we can work remote, and we know it's possible.
And the last question we have, I think we sort of talked about it a little earlier, is that you become more spiritually aware as a result of these experiences.
Well, as for me, most definitely, you know, I'm Muslim, you know, and I have been Muslim since I've been little. And one of the fundamentals that I got from Islam is God is never going to put nothing on you that you can't handle, you know. So I had that embedded in my mainframe, and you know, whatever situation that I get in, I always use that motto. I know that I'm gonna put nothing on I can't handle. By the grace of God, I've been able to push through a lot of obstacles, you know, and I believe if I didn't have that connection with God, things would have probably went way different for me. So spirituality is definitely very important.
So what do we think that we might want to say to the people like listening in who are just trying to take away a couple of pointers on how they can start to move forward in using art and activism? Is there a way that we can support either of you? Is there a way that we want people to just start supporting themselves?
I think that's the perfect place to even put it, right? Like art as a tool of activism. For the Guild members involved with the Emerge campaign, one of the questions we launched was, you know, what does it mean to have a record or something on record of your past, you know, mistakes, or be on probation, be in a halfway house, and want to be active and want to say something is wrong with society, and I want to go out there, but if I get taken away, it may mean recidivism, right? And so the art became a channel for the Guild members who were involved with the process. And, you know, just to elaborate on a previous answer, I just want to say we are moving forward with another Guild and starting into first week of August, and details will be, you know, released to the community soon and the stakeholders soon. And so art and activism, we can say our work is activism. Our work is artistic. Our work is creative. Our work is bringing light when people are put in positions where darkness may become the only choice.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking to affect, it's just, is what we've been talking about today. And you guys have been doing a really good job of, I think, of creating a new normal, of challenging the spaces that we already live in. Like, how are we going to challenge the community to process all this food and use it in a really creative way? And Philadelphia is a great place to do that. I can't imagine any other city where I walk down the street and I see statements being made on the street all the time. But like Freeway, how are you going to move forward with the Freedom Thinkers? What can we do to support that?
I mean, everybody can go on the website. It's freedomthinkersacademy.com. We have a lot of interactive workshops. Y'all can participate in some of the workshops if music is your passion. We're getting ready to fully launch the health division, so that's going to be coming in August. And as far as the music, I'm gonna keep pushing forward. I got a new album coming this year that's going to be amazing. And my music has always been my outlet to get my emotions out. Whatever I've been going through is my real life, and it helped me so much. Without my music and without my outlet to get my emotions and my feelings out, I don't know where I would be right now. So I encourage everybody to find out what you're passionate about and what really makes your gears want to go, and stick to it and keep pushing and move forward, because if you're passionate about it and you love it, you're never at work. It never feels like work.
That's real. That's real.
No, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, and I just want to, as far as the Emerge campaign, it's www.muralarts.org/emerge. That will take you to the web page. And if you see it on social media, repost, reshare, let's keep the momentum going. There's going to be more evolving from it. And it's really just about, like, we have to keep creating these channels of communication and dialogue, because once we lose communication, we'll just have more community breakdown. You can't have community without communication. Even when, the system has things in place that you may not agree with, it's one of those things, like, you still got to keep going to the table. You still put in this position to keep showing up and saying, yo, like, you got so much power and opportunity to change. And I think that's the other thing too, is, may the people continue to realize how much power they have and how much accountability that is on them as well, because we've been all born with some gifts. And even with the conversation around healing and reflection and stillness, I want to make sure that we're clear that even in that there is a privilege, because some people literally cannot afford to slow down. And so I want to make that clear. I understand both sides of that conversation, for sure.
Someone just popped up with a question. We have about 10 minutes left, but this one is a really good one. They want to know how to address youth trauma conversations amongst the youth right now in the midst of the COVID crisis we're going through.
Would that be for me, or you want to go to Freeway?
You know what? Either one of you. I think it's both, because Freeway's got the health division and with the Freedom Thinkers, and Greg, you've been discussing that, but let's just give them a couple of pointers with the time we have left.
I'll go to Free first. I want to still process. I'm going to answer that one.
I mean, I think the best way to do it is to keep it real with them, and you can share experiences, things that you've been through. I think you should probably approach them with something that piques their interest to start the conversation. I have a 20-year-old son, and he drives me crazy. Of course, he want to be a rapper. Of course, he run around thinking he's a boss. We have issues in the house all the time. He'll leave the dishes in the sink, and I'm like, dog, I'm the star. Like, if you leave the dishes in the sink, I'm gonna have to clean them up. Like, you think I'm the one that pay for everything in here? You think I should be the one cleaning dishes after you? So it'd be hard for me to get through to him, but I would let him talk to one of my friends. Like, I put him on the phone with Gil the other day, and Gil talked to him and got right through to him, because that's not his son. He don't live with him. He gave him a different perspective of it. So I think it's definitely important to approach the youth with something that they're familiar with to start the conversation. And I think you should just keep it real with them and give them the real.
Yeah.
That's the best thing that we can do. If we try to shelter them and just spoon feed them and just give them a little bit at a time and don't keep it real with them, then they'll be out here lost. And it's a crazy time for your child to be out here lost in 2020 in this world.
Yeah, and I would say, I think the communication is key. I agree with Free on that one.
Definitely.
Being real, but also, doing research, because people are starting to produce things around COVID-19 and the trauma that is causing on family dynamics, as well as young people who all of a sudden have to stay in the house and wear a mask.
Mm.
I'm talking about a 7-year-old that missed their friends. They can't touch. They literally, like, all of a sudden they just can't even interact with people, and they just miss them all of a sudden. And it's just sudden, it's this sudden isolation for a lot of people. It's a global existential crisis, right? And it's this invisible earthquake that is still shaking the world. And we have to acknowledge that it's going to continue to cause discomfort. It's going to continue to put us in positions where we're going to have to have uncomfortable conversations with people. And I think that is like the first start, is just telling them the truth and really unpacking what they might be missing and what has been taken away so drastically.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It's traumatic. It's traumatic for a lot of adults. So you can imagine how the youth feel.
Yeah.
We have, being adults, we have a better understanding of things. So you can imagine how dramatic and impactful it is for the youth. It's definitely crazy right now. It's definitely crazy times.
I think just watching the news, I realize, like, even for, like you said, Freeway, like, even for adults, how tense it is for us to be learning like these new emotional range that we've gotten staying in the house and sheltering in. So if I'm having problems feeling like, I don't even know how to address how I'm feeling, how do we expect our, young people to be able to navigate these emotions? But I think it might be more talking to them and not at them, which I think a lot of us have the tendency to do.
Definitely.
You're just like, you're the elder. It's that sort of like transgenerational thing going on. You should just listen to what I say without a very thorough explanation as to what's happening and what they're going through, and acknowledging that, as young people, yes, they do have emotions. Yes, they are struggling to maintain some sort of like normalcy. And I think that sometimes we forget that, how it felt to be younger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. The more voice that young people are given in this moment, and the way they can just adjust and have that conversation. But I also think, like, the parents, like, or just adults in general, I mean, we need our own level of emotional intelligence. My father, he didn't grow up in a time where that was fully available. We're talking about, growing up, and I had to really just acknowledge, like, wow, my father would say, yo, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna fight dude every time you see him because of what he did. And literally, that I didn't feel up to that. Every day we had war.
I remember the days, boy.
Every day but I'm like, Dad, we gotta do that every day, like, for real. But what I miss about my dad is that he just didn't have the skill, because it wasn't of his generation and also his environment to the emotion now. And, I saw that play out as I got older in my 20s. And I was just like, what is this pain? What is this? Why I keep making the same decisions? Why do I react that way to this stimulus? And really starting to rethink that thing. But I think the same thing with COVID is, like, parents, this is a challenge for them as well, to step up how well they know themselves, because they're having their own reaction and their own challenges. And so can they really parallel that conversation that they're having internally with their children that would make the relationship actually closer,
There's so much work to be done. It just,
This is life.
gosh, right? It is. But it's just like, I'm appreciating what you guys are saying today. And I've been taking a lot of notes so that I can go back and start thinking about the semantics of it. Like, how am I going to move forward in my own art practice, being able to address some of these issues? A lot of times I can't believe how you can just sort of walk blindly around and not even recognize these things until you sit down with two people who are actually working in that field. But what I hope is that people start to think of more creative options to start addressing the stressors that we're having in our lives right now, because they're definitely more productive. We're trying to create a new language, and we hope that, the more that you find solutions or ways that work for you, that please, reach out and let us know how you're doing with those. It would be great to see if you've learned anything from this, or if there's something that you want to address with us. Are we still getting the Q&A? I keep thinking like, oh, we're going to close. And I'm like, maybe just one more. But someone just wanted to say that they really appreciate you guys sharing your experiences. Oh, they're from Peru. Even though they're in different countries, we're facing some of the same challenges.
Oh, wow.
And so they're trying to adapt their missions and their social work to address this new reality for their kids, for the youth, and for their community. So thank you so much for saying that, because, you know, we're just really trying to have a conversation that I think everybody's having, and people need to hear sort of out in the open so they can just get it off their chest. Sometimes if you can say these things out loud, I think it helps us in that process of creating like the blueprint, you know, so it's work in progress.
Yeah, you know, it's my hope we will emerge, you know, more emotionally intelligent. We will emerge more inclusive. We will emerge more resilient. We will emerge loving. We will emerge nurturing. You know, we will emerge building. We will emerge thoughtful. You know, we will emerge healing or healed. You know, so when I'm thinking about that, it's like, you know, that whole word emerge is bringing light too. And we continue to bring light. We continue to bring light. We will emerge free. You know, we will emerge liberated. You know, we will emerge. It's so many things you could put in, but it's really an affirmation to get people thinking that the work is never going to stop. It's never going to stop. And we have to continue to do this work because
continue to push, keep pushing.
Yep.
Now you guys have two people with some like real hard knock life experiences, but have done something very positive out of it. And I hope that you all can do that wherever you live. I mean, someone from Peru, so we know that we're all addressing this all around the world. But I just want to thank the two of you for sharing all of this food with us today. It's really been eye-opening. And if anybody wants to go through, I hope that you seek out the Restorative Justice program at Mural Arts. And then also you go to the Freedom Thinkers Academy and keep following Freeway in his career.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, guys. This has been a great conversation.
Appreciate y'all having us.
Ginger,
for sure.
Thank you so much. And anybody reaching out to me, my email is greg.corbin, Corbin, @muralarts.org. Follow the Emerge campaign at www.muralarts.org/emerge.
Definitely. Anybody want to reach out to me, my email is free@freedomthinkersacademy.com. My Instagram is Philadelphia Freeway. My Twitter is @PhillyFreezer.
So Victoria, Mural Arts, if you guys want to roll our closeout music, you can go right ahead.
Yo.